How do everybody? So we have got a fantastic story here in the New York Times, and it basically confirms what everybody already knew, but we've been lied about for years that would be impossible. And that is Donald Trump is showing the world that you can in fact use the military to deport millions of people. Ooh, pardon me. Now, people like myself in the UK, I myself have been saying this, and others have been saying it for at least 20 years, that the military could very easily be used to start getting rid of people and not have to infringe so much on the time of the police or even immigration enforcement officials. Or like we saw during Tories when they were trying to deport certain people and mobs had turned up. There's no reason why the military couldn't have been there to clear the path so that the immigration officers could get out. It's absolutely insane that our politicians have not been utilising the military at all. And same with stopping these boats coming over the water. Very, very easy to get the Royal Navy out and block those boats from coming here. But hey ho, it's whether there's actually political will there or not to whether this problem will actually get solved or not. It is that simple. Donald Trump is proving that right here with his intentions when he becomes president. Let's get on with this story. And when you're finished here, please do read it yourself. Make your own mind up and don't just go off what I say, because my opinions could always be wrong. You never know. I doubt it, but they could be. So anyway, let's get on with the story. Mr. Trump's top immigration policy advisor has discussed using military assets to build detention centres and support civilian immigration agents. What do you know? That's basically just what I've said with a little bit more on top about getting the engineers in to build these centres. People have been saying that as well over here. Get the military to build these places. We have engineers who can do it. We have not just you get the infantry helping them. You get the tankies helping them. You get the REME helping them. That's the Royal Electrical and Mechanical Engineers. This is something that could reasonably be done. You get the Marines in helping as well. This could very, very quickly be done. It's not rocket science. This is what people would have done. Like going back to the 1940s. This would have been the first option. Right, let's get the army in to do it. In the 1920s, let's get the army and get them to build it. They'll do it. Don't worry about it. It's easy. Done. These politicians for the last 40, 50 years have been useless. Absolutely useless. They couldn't organise a drink up in a brewery. They're that useless. These people literally could not run a bath. And it's why our country is going belly up financially. Because they have no idea what to do. Just interested in lining their own pockets. Anyway, let's get on with it. President-elect Donald J. Trump confirmed on Monday that he intended to declare a national emergency and use the US military in some form to assist in his plans for mass deportations of undocumented immigrants. Music to my ears, that. Absolute music to my ears. That's what I want to hear our politicians over here saying. I mean, the best we have is Nigel Farage. And what's he said? Well, he's basically said we should surrender and just basically we might as well convert to Islam, according to him now, by 2050. I can't believe the amount of cowardice that's coming out of even Nigel Farage's mouth over here. It's pathetic. But I suppose he's run his course now. He's got what he wanted. He got Brexit. He's got become an MP in Parliament. That's everything achieved that he wanted. So maybe that's what it is. Maybe there's no more fight left in him. Because how long he's been going on. It's a shame. But maybe it's time for him to pass the torch on to somebody else who's willing to carry on the fight properly. So anyway, on his social media platform, Truth Social, Mr. Trump responded overnight to a post made earlier this month by Tom Fitton, who runs a conservative group, Judicial Watch, and who wrote that Mr. Trump's administration would declare a national emergency and will use military assets to address illegal migration through a mass deportation program. You see, we could do something similar here as well, because I've got quite a good memory for this sort of stuff. Boris Johnson created emergency powers for himself, which essentially meant he could pass any law he wanted. Well, guess what? That precedent is now there. So any Prime Minister that gets in can declare a national emergency and give themselves those unlimited powers. And they could get these sorts of things done instantly. Like that. They could literally then say, my word is the law from this point on. And then they could pass any law they wanted. But they will not do it. Because they're cowards. They are cowards and weak. Weak politicians is what we have. So anyway, around 4 a.m, Mr. Trump reposted Mr. Fitton's post with the comment, true. Amazing. I just wish we had a politician with even half as much charisma as Donald Trump. Congress has granted presidents broad power to declare national emergencies at their discretion, unlocking standby powers that include redirecting funds lawmakers had appropriated for other purposes. Well, that'll be coming from the Ukraine money, won't it? During his first term, for example, Mr. Trump invoked this power to spend more on a border wall than Congress had been willing to authorise. Amazing. Absolutely amazing. A politician who actually wants to do what he said he's going to do. Who could have thought that would be a real thing? Having a politician who's going to do what they say they're going to do. It's funny that, isn't it? How he gets voted in and he'll do what people want to do. It's like My God, what an epiphany of genius that is. Say you're going to do something as a politician and then follow through with it. My goodness, that's like Einstein level thinking, isn't it? No, it's not. No, that should be par for the course as a politician. It's just infuriating that we get so many politicians saying they're going to do stuff and they don't. In interviews with New York Times during the Republican primary campaign, described in an article published in November 2023, Mr. Trump's top immigration policy advisor, Stephen Miller, said that military funds would be used to build vast holding facilities that would function as staging centres for immigrants as their cases progressed and they waited to be flown to other countries. Brilliant. And on top of illegal immigrants, you could also be picking up foreign criminals as well and chucking them in there as well. You know, this isn't a hard thing to do. People say, oh, well, there's so many million in the country. How do we get rid of them? It's like, well, you don't round them all up on day one. You do it in stages over X number of years. You know, like you see, we have a 10-year, 15-year, 20-year program in order to get rid of these people. You know, and I loved how the... I can't remember his name, but the guy I think he used to be involved in immigration or something in America. Anyway, on the news, they asked him, he said, well, what about people who've got families? How would you deport them? And he just went, well, we can deport families together. That is amazing. That is exactly what these people should be saying and doing as well, by the way, following through with it. You know, just deport the lot. You've got to be ruthless with this, unfortunately. People might not like it, but it's in the same way, if you go to war and people support you going to war, and then you're going to say, right, we're going to blow these buildings up and we have to shoot these people. I mean, whoa, you can't shoot those people. You can't blow that building up. What do you mean you're going to do that? It's like, well, we're fighting a war. This is what we have to do. Unfortunately, sometimes you've got to do these terrible things in order to get the goals achieved. Well, it's the same with deporting people. You know, unfortunately, you've got to do things like deport whole families sometimes. People might not like that, but that's just the way it is. That's just literally the way it's got to be, unfortunately. Otherwise, you can't do the job. Too many softies, unfortunately, have been running the countries for too long. So anyway, the Homeland Security Department would run the facilities. He said one major impediment to the vast deportation operation that the Trump team has promised in his second term is that Immigration and Customs Enforcement, or ICE, lacks the space to hold a significantly large number of detainees than it currently does. Yeah, just build holding facilities. You know, they're just rudimentary holding facilities. You see these UN refugee camps on the news all the time. And they're just tent cities inside barbed wire enclosures where people can't get in or out. You know, without locking. You know, where they're locked in. You know, if it's good enough for the UN to do it in I don't know, somewhere like bloody Kuwait or somewhere like that, then it's good enough for places like the UK and America to do it. You know, and it's tough poo if you don't like it. If you don't like it, don't come here. It's that simple. Got to start getting tough on this. That has sometimes led to allowing asylum seekers into the country while they await court dates with immigration judges, a practice critics deride as catch and release. Yeah, well, they just disappear then, don't they? They run off. You know, they just fly by nights. Crazy. The Trump team believes that such camps could enable the government to accelerate deportations of undocumented people who fight their expulsion from the country. The idea is that more people would voluntarily accept removal instead of pursuing a long shot effort to remain in custody if they had to stay locked up in the interim. That would be a very good part of it as well. I personally as well would deny them access to legal representation. I'd create a second, I don't know if America would do this, but I would create a second suite of laws only guaranteeing basic protections for people like getting fed and watered. And I would say, look, if you're here illegally, you don't get normal rights that everyday citizen has. You don't have the right to legal representation. You don't even have the right to a fair hearing. You just have the right to basic dignity of life. You know, toilet, shower, food, a bed. That's about it, really. You know, the bare minimum. Less than a prisoner, basically, I'd give them. Asked about the proposal, Sabrina Singh, a spokeswoman for the Pentagon, declined to comment, calling it a hypocritical. A hypothetical. Sorry, I'm being an absolute moron there. In general, she added such a plan would typically undergo a rigorous process before being enacted, but she declined to elaborate. Immigrant advocates assailed the move, raising alarms about the potential fallout. Oh my goodness. The immigration advocates are crying wolf once again. Who could have seen that one coming? It's not like the moment you try and challenge somebody at the border that they're not going to be up in arms about that as well, is it? You know what I mean? Those immigration advocates, unless it's 100% zero immigration checks and anybody can move anywhere in the world, they will never be happy. And even then they wouldn't be happy, because then they'd be campaigning for putting flights and buses on for those people. We need to get them over here quicker. Why should they be paying from their own pocket to get over here? Come on, get them in over buses, fill the boats up, give them your house, get out. Listen, you idiot, get out of your house and give it to an immigrant. That's what they'd be doing after that, because that's what these advocates do. They are permanent campaigners, and no matter when they achieve the goals, they've got to stay relevant and find new goals. So they will always complain about something, because that's how they make their money. Crazy. President-elect Trump's dystopian fantasies should send a chill down everyone's spine, whether immigrant or native-born, said Karen Tumlin, the director of Justice Action Centre, an immigrant advocacy organisation. That is funny that they call him dystopian. That is hilarious to me. Just engaging in normal political activity and protecting your borders. Dystopian. Wow. Not only is what he's describing in all likelihood illegal, this move would be the exact opposite of the legacy of service in which my family members were proud to participate. I doubt that very much. I doubt very much that her family members going through the decades would have fought. I doubt when her ancestors were charging along the beaches of Normandy and getting shot up that they were doing it for people from Mexico and Libya to cross over the southern border illegally and get put up in hotels at the expense of the American taxpayer. I doubt that very, very much. In fact, I think they'd be pretty upset and offended by it, to be honest with you. So, Robin Barnard, the Senior Director of Refugee Advocacy at Human Rights First, asserted that the consequences will be far-ranging. Families will be torn apart, businesses left without virtual employees, and our country will be left to pick up the pieces for years to come, she added. What, you mean because businesses actually have to pay wages to people that they need to live on, instead of having in a bunch of cheap foreign labour who work tax-free so they can be underpaid because they're not getting a big massive fat wedge of tax taken out of it every week or every month? No. The free ride's over, I'm afraid, and I fully support this. Congressional Democrats responded with a similar level of incredulity, asserting that such a move was all but certain to violate federal laws preventing the use of military on American soil. And another part as well, going back to people not working on farms and stuff. Well, guess what? Elon Musk's going to be sacking millions of people from the civil service, isn't he? Those people aren't going to have transferable skills into the private sector, are they? Let's be honest. Those people are going to need work. Maybe those people could go out there and pick the vegetables and pick the fruits. Hey, how about that? Learn to pick fruit, people. Learn to pick fruit. We're pursuing whatever we can do to make clear that the Insurrection Act should not permit the use of the military, said Senator Richard Blumenthal, Democrat of Connecticut, referring to the 1807 law that grants presidents emergency power to use troops on domestic soil to restore order when they decide a situation warrants it. Under that law, if there is no threat to public order of a fundamental, far-reaching kind, it would be illegal, he added. Well, I would say that millions and millions of people entering the country illegally and committing huge waves of crime is actually a form of public order of a far-reaching kind. You know, I mean, call me crazy there, but I would say that is actually a far-reaching public order problem. It warrants the military being brought in. I actually agree with Donald Trump there, and I think the courts will as well. Republicans, however, suggest that Mr. Trump's proposal might not be a radical departure from the status quo. Obviously, they're not law enforcement, but I have to see what their process is, said Senator James Lankford, Republican of Oklahoma, who served as the lead Republican negotiator on a bipartisan immigration deal that failed to pass the Senate after Mr. Trump urged the GOP to reject it. For those who don't know, GOP is Grand Old Party, which is the term for the the Republican Party, because they're conservatives, and for the Republican Party in America. So anybody who didn't know that. If the National Guard is providing transportation, they do that a lot already. I believe it's called the GOP as well because they're the oldest political party in America. I think they're like one of the founding parties, although they may have had a different name earlier. I'm not somebody who's American, can you explain that in comments for us, please? I think that's what it is, isn't it? Because they go right back to the founding fathers, I believe, or something like that. Hard-right members of Congress and staunch supporters of Mr. Trump have expressed broad support for his proposal for mass deportations. Senator Tommy Tuberville, Republican of Alabama, chimed in on social media on Monday to back using the military for such an effort, saying, Mr. Trump is 100% correct, and I 100% agree with that. Mr. Miller has also talked about invoking a public health emergency power to curtail hearing asylum claims, as the Trump administration did during the COVID-19 pandemic. Absolutely, they are not leaving one stone unturned, and they're going to attack this from every single angle that they can. This is what happens when you have political will to achieve something. It's fantastic. Why can't our politicians do this? Please God, why can't you do this for us? Where were we? Oh, there we go. Yeah, Mr. Trump's declaration of a national emergency at the southern border amid a surge of asylum seekers and his reprogramming of military funds towards his border wall in 2019 was a face-saving way out of a spending standoff with Congress. It was a very clever way of doing that as well, because obviously he had the rump Congress who were trying to thwart his ability to build his wall that he promised the American people that he'd do. And obviously he didn't build the whole wall, but you know what? At least he made a start on it, and that's absolutely unbelievably amazing that he did that. So hopefully he'll finish that and even get it buttressed up as well, to make it even more difficult. Make multiple layers perhaps, so it's continues to be a further challenge. That led to a government shutdown. It led to legal challenges that had not been definitively resolved before President Biden took over and halted further construction on the border wall. Yeah, well, I think that upset a lot of people as well. Mr. Trump's, that's probably why a lot of people on the southern states as well were voting for Trump this time, because you have all these people in states like, because Texas, I believe, used to be part of Mexico once upon a time, so we've got a very, very large Hispanic population there, a Latin population, so a lot of those people obviously see this every day happening, and they don't just look at somebody, oh, well, he's got brown skin like me, so we're the same. They go, they're a foreigner coming into here and causing crime where I live. They don't care about the colour of the skin. All they want is law and order, and I'd be the exact same. If we had loads of French people or Germans coming into our country causing massive amounts of crime over here, I'd be upset about them, and I couldn't care less than the white. I wouldn't be happy about loads of illegal immigrants of European descent coming here. It's not about skin colour. It's about law and order and things being done properly. That's it does not surprise me at all that those southern states have turned to Donald Trump whatsoever. Especially the people who live along the borders and have to put up with it, with the worst. They're having the cartels, intimidating them and driving up and down the streets and stuff like that. Trump's team said it had developed a multifaceted plan to significantly increase the number of deportations, which it thought could be accomplished without new legislation from Congress, although it anticipated legal challenges. There will always be legal challenges because, unfortunately, the legal eagles like to make a lot of money out of it, especially human rights. It's weird how lawyers and legal experts will always trump how you should never, ever break the law unless it's people entering a country illegally. And then they will do everything in their power to support those people. And it's weird how even politicians will back that. They'll be against taking drugs and burglary and fighting in the street and, tax evasion and all that sort of stuff. But the moment it's somebody breaking into a country illegally, even if it's a dangerous criminal, they don't care. They'll do everything in their power to keep that person in that country. Weird. I actually can't understand that. It's a very, very strange mindset. Other elements of the team's plan include bolstering the ranks of the ICE officers with law enforcement officials who will be temporarily reassigned from other agencies. Amazing. And with state National Guardsmen and federal troops activated to enforce the law on domestic soil under the Insurrection Act. Fantastic. I mean, they could probably even bring in sweeping emergency powers where people who are resisting it can be shot as well. And I'd have absolutely no problem with that. If you're going to get deported and you try to fight it and you're trying to refuse to get deported, they should just be shooting people. Now, people may say that's cruel, but I'm telling you what, once a few people have been shot, yeah, it'd be horrible for those first few people and tragic, but you'll soon start seeing people falling into line and doing as they're told. It'll very, very quickly nip it in the bud. Any efforts of people to try and misbehave, because they'll learn very, very quickly, if I don't do as I'm told, I'm going to get shot as well. Very simple. Very, very simple. You come down hard. Unfortunately, people from very, very hard countries, where they've lived in very, very poor conditions, they only respect violence, a lot of these people. And it's all a lot of them understand. So unless you show them extreme violence, they see you as weak and pathetic and they feel they can just bully their way through things. So you've got to come down incredibly, incredibly hard on these people. It's the only way you can do it. The team also plans to expand a form of due process free expulsions known as expedited removal, which is currently used near the border for recent arrivals to people living across the interior of the country who cannot prove they have been in the United States for more than 2 years. I mean, I agree, if I'm understanding that properly, if people are volunteering to go back, I think themselves, who are illegal, I do agree with supporting those, although you should have incredibly strict punishments if they try and come back again. And I do think people who get deported as well, especially if they're putting up a fight, they should be seizing their assets and using their assets to help fund the deportation. So people who are in the country illegally and know it, or people who know they're going to get deported, you have a violent criminal who's come out of prison, if they're not voluntarily removing themselves from the country, if they've been ordered to leave, you just seize all their assets, empty the bank accounts, take the cars, take the watches, take everything you need to, send them back wearing literally just the clothes on the back and the shoes on the feet. And use those assets to at least cover some of the costs and recoup some of the cost of getting rid of them. So then it's not a burden on the taxpayer or as much of. And the team plans to stop issuing citizenship affirming documents like passports and social security cards to infants born on domestic soil to undocumented migrant parents in a bid to end birthright citizenship. Yeah, that always makes perfect sense as well. Why should, just because you're pushing out a kid in a country doesn't mean you should be part of that country. I absolutely do not agree with that. You know, I myself was born in Germany. I'm not German. I'm English. Just because I was born in a foreign country doesn't mean I'm part of that country. You know, it's crazy to assume so. Mr. Trump has already signalled his intent to follow through on his promises with personal announcements. He named Mr. Miller as a deputy chief of staff in his administration with influence over domestic policy. And Mr. Trump said he would make Thomas Homan, who ran ICE for the first year and a half of the Trump administration and was an early proponent of separating families to deter migrants, his administration's borders. I think that's the guy who said he'll just deport the whole families, which again, I fully support. It's the only way to do it. Mr. Hoffman told the New York Times in 2023 that he had met with Mr. Trump shortly after the now president-elect announced that he would seek office again. During that meeting, Mr. Hoffman said he agreed to come back in a second term and would help to organise and run the largest deportation operation this country's ever seen. Oh, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. I could listen to him saying that on repeat for about 5 hours straight. I love it. I just bask there in the glory of it, like listening to Mozart or Beethoven. Beautiful, beautiful. Anyway, point is, fantastic for Americans. You got a great win there. Why can't we do that? Why can we not have politicians saying those exact same things or words to the effect of? That could be done. That is politically achievable right there. All of it. And we live on an island. So it's not like we're going to build a great big bloody wall, is it? We just need to have a couple of boats out there pushing them back. Searching videos at the ports on the French side or in the train stations. You know, not rocket science. Not rocket science at all. Lack of will and lack of accountability for people who fail to do the jobs as well. That's another thing. People need to be punished. Anyway, I'm going to leave it there. If you found that interesting, insightful, useful, any of that good stuff, please do like, subscribe. Please, please, please do put a comment below as well if you agree with me or if you don't. I'm not a closed book. I am willing to change my mind on things. If your arguments are strong enough, I will read them, I will think about them, and I may change my mind, as I say. But we'll leave it there. Thank you for that. Take care and goodbye.